Hey everybody, I am going to explain my phone again, except after 18 months instead of 6. There's been some slight changes in the way I use this phone. I would say I was a little bit more of a medium to slightly heavy user at around 6 months, but as time has gone by and I've gotten a couple more products and been using a few more productivity related apps on my phone, I would say that my usage has gone up a little bit. Depends on the day, but more lately I've been streaming more video. I now have Bluetooth headphones, so I've been running, I believe, Bluetooth 4.2 on those on a pretty consistent basis. That's for the commute to and from work, so I would say total usage time can be anywhere between 3 and 5 hours, depending on how the commute goes. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the device again. Obviously, all of you who have already seen this in the 6-month video, I'm not going to go too in depth as I will in that video. So if you want more details on the experience of the phone itself, you can look at the 6-month video. I'll have it linked somewhere, either in the description or in a card. Basically, not too much has changed, except for, I would say, the battery would be the primary thing that has changed. But before I get to that, as you can see, appearance-wise, no change, no damage, no nothing. Screen's totally fine, no dead pixels after 18 months. Everything else functions relatively quickly. The only difference I would probably say is now when the battery hits around 20%, the phone does start to slow down rather dramatically to the point where some apps will stutter for seconds on end. So I would definitely keep note of that. I don't know whether every device in this class does that, but that is something I definitely have noticed. So basically, whenever it does get to that point, I just make sure I charge it up. And Quick Charge 3 obviously still works great. So this is a second case. This one I got off of Amazon. It's slightly thicker, I would say. Maybe not as prone to discoloration as the one that comes with this phone originally. And this one's held up pretty well, and this phone, like I said, has not been damaged barely at all. And you could probably check the discoloration a little bit more here. Probably some here on the edges from me grabbing it and using it regularly, but that's really it. So what else was I going to say? Camera was one of my major gripes that I had on the 6-month video, and I wouldn't say that has changed too much. I started messing around with the manual mode a little bit more. I don't know why I didn't do that before, but it does help with the focus issues that I was having before. So if you do have this phone or still have it laying around somewhere and want to use it for a camera, just make sure that you are using the manual focus to get the most out of it. I'd probably say the same thing with brightness and everything else as well. Now, some people were reporting in the comments for my previous video that there was an issue with this phone where when you opened the default camera app, it would vibrate in the middle of the app being open, and what that would do is it would prevent you from taking any shots. The entire viewfinder would be blurry and noisy, and basically it would keep you from taking any pictures that were remotely good. This issue did happen to me right around when the solar eclipse happened, I believe last year, funny enough. I was actually trying to take a photo at one point, and that issue continued to occur for me for about a couple of weeks, but then it stopped. I don't believe that it was due to a patch. It just happened randomly and started working again. I don't know why. I always kind of wanted to know why. Maybe it was a patch that I wasn't aware of, but I'm not sure. Now, other than the camera, the other main concern that I had was the battery. And that issue, I don't know, if we're talking usage, honestly, I would say for a battery this old, about 18 months old, I'm just going to give you guys another look at the phone if you really want to see what it looks like. There's not going to be too many more ham gymnastics in this video as there were in the 6-month video. So again, if you want more details on how this phone looks, you can check out that video. But basically the battery held up, in my opinion, pretty darn well for how old it is. Didn't go down too much more than it did right around 6 months. I would say maybe it drains slightly faster. I'd give it maybe 5-10% faster. But Also, given the fact that I'm using Bluetooth headphones as opposed to a wired headset, which is what I was doing before, the battery drain you can kind of expect to go up a little bit when you swap to a headset like that. So because it's drawing the power from Bluetooth and not from the wired headset. I don't know what the power difference, what the actual power draw difference is between a Bluetooth and a wired headset, but I recollect it being that the Bluetooth headset does draw slightly more. I've also been streaming videos a lot more on the way home, which does affect battery drain quite a bit on top of running it with the Bluetooth headset and whatnot. So just keep that in mind. And if we're going to move on, I would say the next thing I would talk about would be build quality. Rock solid, honestly. I've been really surprised with how well this thing is held up. I have dropped it about 3 or 4 more times since I filmed the last video, and not a scratch, not a ding, nothing. And it hasn't affected speed at all either. Besides the battery issue, which is a totally different problem. I don't think it's related to me dropping it at all. So good on ZTE for making a really well-built phone. Next thing I wanted to move on to was sound. There were a couple of things that I didn't mention in the 6-month video that were still bothering me at that point. The main one was Dolby Atmos. The technology is great for the integrated stereo speakers that you see on the top and bottom chamfers of the phone. But basically, Dolby Atmos decides to enable itself at random. I like having it turned off if I'm not using the integrated speakers on the phone. And whenever you do play anything on the integrated speakers, Dolby Atmos will enable. And that then sets off a chain of other events like Atmos enabling at random when you're using it in a wired setting or in a Bluetooth setting. So just note that I have had to manually disable it every time it does come up. So, and it's very noticeable audio-wise. You'll be able to tell. Certain audio tracks sound more compressed than usual would be the way I could describe how the audio is manipulated when Dolby Atmos is on. So I would suggest turning it off if you want a more authentic listening experience, which I do tend to crave relatively often. And then the last thing I am going to mention for how long I've had this phone for was support from the vendor, ZTE. I did get the January security patch. It was a few weeks ago at this point, and that updated the security firmware to January of 2018, which is still technically current at this point compared to most vendors. So that's not really a complaint on my part. I haven't really had any issues with that. We are still on NuGet 7.1.1, I believe the subversion is. It may be 1.2, I don't remember. But either way, it's reported that we are going to get an Oreo update in April. My guess is it'll be more like June because that's how long it's going to take for the OTA to get to the phone. That's just my perspective on what I've gotten from OEMs. But basically, April will be when we'll receive that update. And I'm hoping that happens because ZTE, as far as their response, hasn't been half bad. I wouldn't say it's been amazing, but when they do communicate something out through their website, it's usually relatively quick. And my plans for this phone long term haven't really changed much. I'm planning on swapping phones out maybe fall or winter of this year. And that just mainly depends on how the battery holds up over the next 6 months. If I do end up using it longer than 2 years, I may make another video, but we'll see. So I hope you guys enjoyed this update. If you did, let me know. And I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.